What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blamwagon. Before we get into the video, I just want to address the elephant in the room. Yes, I did drink a potion that made me shrink half my size. I don't know, things happen. It wasn't my proudest moment. If anybody's got a cake that could potentially revert the side effects of said potion, let me know in the comments below.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Blamwagon. This is everything that I listen to in the month of November. If this is your first time tapping into the channel, what we do here is that I give you a little bit of a rating, a little bit of review, tell you if I think an album is worth your time or not. As always, you can use the YouTube chapters in the description below to skip to an album of your choosing. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more content just like this, all things music. Without further ado, let's just jump right into our first album, that being Iconoclasts by Anna von Hausswolff, which is a larger-than-life, cinematically composed record featuring a surreal and haunting vocal performance from Anna herself and some chaotically experimental saxophone work that blends together to create a listening experience that is both beautifully jazzy and otherworldly. The tracks here are lengthy, yes, but they are also ever-changing and dynamic, so nothing ever really drags here or feels longer than their runtime. I will say I struggled a bit with the features on this record, most notably Iggy Pop's awkward and out-of-place delivery weighing down Anna's otherwise beautiful performance. I also found Ethel Cain's feature, while good, to sort of fall to the wayside and not have nearly the prominence that I felt she should have had. On top of that, there are like one or two tracks here that feel a little hollow in comparison to the rest, like The Mouth and An Ocean of Time, which lack the punch that the other tracks have. However, tracks like Stardust and Struggle with the Beast are insanely powerful, technically impressive, and feel important in their dominance and structure. All in all, I really enjoyed this record, despite there being a couple of flaws. A standout to come out of 2025 for sure, and one that I can see myself returning to quite often. And I'm gonna give Iconoclasts an 8.5. Pero mi corazón nunca ha sido mío, yo siempre lo doy. Next, I listened to Luxe by Rosalia. Let me start off by saying, is Luxe technically impressive? Yes, certainly. But is it one of the greatest albums of all time? Probably not. I've seen a lot of discourse online acting as though this record is the second coming of Christ, and while I think it's pretty good, I'm not sure I fully understand the level of hype that it is currently receiving. It's an epic, complex, and dense record featuring lyrics written in 14 different languages. Yes, 14, which is a feat in of itself, obviously. Because of this, it feels like a true celebration of dialect and world culture, which makes the album feel a little larger than life. But I found the production here to be somewhat hit or miss, with tracks feeling truly cinematic and bombastic, with Rosalia's operatic performance, accompanied by powerfully orchestral instrumentation. However, I found an equal amount of tracks here to feel derivative of that very material. Tracks that felt large and intense but lacked substance. I would have liked to see more variety in sound, which is silly, considering there are 14 different languages on this thing. Perhaps it's the language barrier that's holding me back from fully appreciating the record, but I'm going to chalk this album up to not being my personal taste. Lovely voice, impressive performance, but feels a little samey towards the end. And I'm gonna give Luxe a 7.5. Next, I listened to Stardust by Danny Brown, which is his most eclectic record to date. It's both ambitious and messy in its execution. There is a certain beauty in the chaos, leaning pretty heavily into an aggressively and inherently inaccessible electronic hyperpop sound palette. For the most part, I think this direction works in Danny's favor, despite being somewhat aimless and incoherent at times. But when he finds his groove, it can be incredibly engaging, like on tracks Copycats and The End. There are a handful of cuts where this angle doesn't quite work as well, like 9 1999 and Greenlight that feel a little too chaotic for their own good. The features are also a little hit or miss. Quadeca brings the heat. As always, underscores are a fantastic juxtaposition to Danny's chaotic nature, and Is Brokey delivers a surprisingly energetic and captivating performance. However, I found Frost Children and Jonaskis to be pretty one-dimensional and somewhat grating even. It's one of Danny's most incoherent records with a very restless and shaky execution, but it also leaves room for some really spectacular moments. I respect the ambition, and it does feel like a true diamond in the rough. And I'm gonna give Stardust a 7.5. Next, I listened to EUSEXUA Afterglow by FKA Twigs. The Afterglow doesn't shine quite as bright as its companion, in my opinion. I really dug EUSEXUA from earlier this year. It was ambitious from front to back, and while I didn't find it to be the most cohesive album, it succeeded in being a psychedelic, otherworldly, and elevated listening experience. Afterglow surprised me in how mellow it was, actually, with most of the track list consisting of almost atmospheric melodies. There are a handful of bangers on here to dance to, like Hard and Sushi, but those moments are far and few between. Some tracks on here feel a little too aimless to enjoy, like Cheap Hotel, which struggles to latch onto a consistent groove or captivating through line. Afterglow carries that psychedelic, almost trance-like vibe over from EUSEXUA, but this time feels a little snoozier than before. All that being said, I still enjoyed a bulk of the project and some of its bolder production choices. Would have preferred more lively tracks akin to Sushi, which is a definite standout on this record, but you know, I'll take what I can get. And I'm gonna give EUSEXUA Afterglow a 7.
Call me Captain Conquer 7 seas in every bay. Fill up with rum and sway through every sunny day till summer seems like something that'll never leave. And haven't stayed the same to see your pleasure's only fleeting if you let it leave. And I would never let it leave.
Next, I listened to Louse the Cat's The Mocking Stars, which is akin to that of a children's book. It's whimsical, quaint, mellow, and full of life and personality. I've never heard of this Louse Cat before, so I went into this record not really sure what to expect, and I was immediately drawn in by how effortlessly cool the instrumentals were, how charismatic and animated the characters within the narrative are, and how elegant and clever the songwriting is. Let me get a few criticisms I have out of the way. Some of the writing here is a little lyrical miracle, feeling like Louse is trying to hit a word count on an essay. His delivery is also a little muddy and hard to understand. Sometimes this is a mixing issue, but other times it's just his demeanor. Outside of that though, The Mocking Stars is a really solid jazz rap record that builds a whole world for you to immerse yourself in, with a cast of characters all with their own unique personalities, backdrops, and performances. The whole record is incredibly theatrical, which might not be everyone's cup of tea, but if you really let yourself sink into how gooey the sound is and how much Louse commits to the environment that he's created, it's an undeniably good time. And I'm gonna give The Mocking Stars an 8. Next, I listened to Y'all by Glaive. I never quite know how to feel about Glaive. I dig a track here and there, but I've never been able to bring myself to listen to a project in full. Even Y'all, which has sat in my queue for over a month now, is a record that I had to force myself to sit down and listen to. It's solid, good even. There's a carefree energy to the record, and when he latches onto a groove, it's really engaging. However, I found a bulk of the tracks here to sound all too similar, hitting the same notes, same beats, same song structures. When Glaive leans into a more aggressive sound, the more elevated moments feel unique and confident, but when he leans into the softer, more tender soundscapes, he struggles to capture and maintain my full attention. Because of this, the project as a whole feels a tad insecure. There are also a handful of tracks here that are simply too short-lived and aren't given an opportunity to develop and grow. I'm not sure I'll return to this record often, even if there is some fun to be had here. And I'm gonna give Y'all a 7. Next, I listened to Tranquilizer by Oneohtrix Point Never. Tranquilizer comes from a wonderfully inventive idea deriving its sound palette from an archive of 1990s sample libraries found on the Internet Archive and critiquing the immediacy and short-lived temporary nature of the internet as a resource. An intriguing concept considering we are at the brink of a dead internet at the hands of artificial intelligence. It's a record that strangles to find beauty in the cold, lifeless carcass of hardware lost to time. Unfortunately, the concept sort of outweighs its execution. It's a fascinating idea and it results in the record sounding incredibly nostalgic and familiar, especially to those who grew up in the early internet era like me. However, the intrigue stops there. The project suffers from style over substance, with the record doing very little to actually say anything of importance at all. The production is incredibly clean, inventive, and layered, yes, but for a record with such an interesting concept, it's not doing much outside of sounding cool. I traditionally don't really care for ambient work, so this record was never going to be my cup of tea, but if you're into this sort of thing, I'd imagine you probably dig the record, and I'm gonna give Tranquilizer a 6.5.
Makes me wonder when it's over, will I get a cabin in the sky? And how will my family deal with it all when they watch me slip away?
And last but not least, I listened to Cabin in the Sky by De La Soul. Admittedly, I don't have much exposure to De La Soul outside of 3 Feet High and Rising, which is such a fun listen. It's certainly one of the most charismatic and fun hip-hop records to come out of the late 80s. Cabin in the Sky is not only a celebration of hip-hop as a whole, but also a tribute to the late Dave, 1/3 of De La Soul. The record is a little bloated and a little long and overstates its welcome a bit, sure, but considering that it is a tribute record, it feels appropriate. There's some filler on the record, sure, but the highs certainly outweigh the lows. The feature lineup is incredibly stacked with Q-Tip, Killer Mike, Black Thought, and Nas, to name a few. Everyone understood the assignment and kind of killed it on all fronts. It's a record that feels modern for new audiences, but also one that pays homage to its hip-hop roots. The production is bar none. It's got some of the cleanest hip-hop production that I've heard come out of this year. And while it is a little bit of a mixed bag, it is a record that truly feels like seeing an old friend again. It's De La Soul not only proving to the world that they still got it, but also that they truly respect the craft. I'm really rocking with Cabin in the Sky. It's a bittersweet record, and I'm gonna give them an 8. And that's everything that I listened to in the month of November. What do you listen to? Let me know in the comments below. Little bit of a shorter video this time around, I know, but as the year is slowing down, we're starting to run out of new releases for me to cover. Because of that, I think I'm actually going to skip on December as a whole. Not only am I traveling for the holidays, I'm also busy behind the scenes working on projects that you are going to see this month. So I'm just kind of prioritizing different things. We're gearing up on year 2 of this channel even being around, and I'm still kind of figuring things out, trying to see what works, what doesn't, what I enjoy making. I don't really know what these videos are going to look like going into next year. I know that I do want to continue to rate and review new music, but I'm not sure I'm going to follow this specific format or not. I've been having a lot of fun making song brackets and more focused videos, so expect to see way more of those coming into next year. We've got one more song bracket video coming out this month, as well as my year-end top 10 album list, so expect to see those very soon. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. If you've been here since the beginning, thank you so much. I appreciate all the love and support. We're going to keep rocking and rolling into next year, so stay tuned. And that's all I got. Happy holidays. Thanks for watching. See you guys soon.
Fuck.